I'm Renee, and this channel is Renée, and this is an ongoing series because this year, in 2026, I committed to making this year my powerful year. And what that means is I've committed to myself to live in my own power all year long in all areas of my life. Really, I'm trying to develop a habit of doing that. So then every year beyond this becomes the same thing, that I will live from here on out in my power. So welcome to the channel. If you're new, I hope you enjoy this video. If you do, like and subscribe. If you've been here before, welcome back. Thank you for coming back and also following along on this journey. So today we're going to talk a little bit deeper about fear and why fear doesn't mean stop. We're gonna talk about how it ties in to my powerful life and transition in life. We're going to talk about what to do about it when it does show up, how to deal with it. So I hope you will stay along for this video. So fear shows up whenever your life expands. Whenever you commit yourself to significant change, fear is going to come a knocking. I wish it wasn't true, but it is. Fear shows up right before big changes happen. So if you think about fear, if you think about fear as a signal of expansion happening or change coming, that's really the way to relate to it. It's really that signal that, oh, your body's kind of contracting, going, oh shoot, something's going to change here. I always think of it as my ego going, oh God, what is she up to now? What adventure are we going to go on now? Because fear will show up anytime I try to initiate or I begin to initiate a transition. I can bank on it showing up whenever I am working on expanding my life. In whatever way, shape, or form I'm expanding my life, fear will show up because it's not comfortable to make changes. And that little ego fearful part of ourselves just wants to keep things small and controlled and known and comfortable and easy. And that is not transition. Transition is about letting go and expanding and changing. So fear is going to show up. Now, the mistake that most people make when the fear shows up because you're going to make a change, you think it's signaling that you're doing something wrong or it's a bad decision. It's a bad decision. The fear showed up. It's signaling me that I'm making a bad decision, so I'm going to stop. It's proof that you shouldn't move forward in some way. It's some kind of signal of danger ahead. That's true when fear signals a tiger, but it's when we have all kinds of fear. If you haven't seen it, my last video, I talked a bit about the different types of fear and how to be discerning with them, how to really figure it out. So usually when fear shows up as it relates to transition, it's really just saying, I'm scared because this is unfamiliar. You're dragging me into unfamiliar territory. This looks like growth and change, and that's uncomfortable. to my little ego girl. She's very uncomfortable. So I have to kind of take her with me through that change. So the lesson in this is fear doesn't mean stop. You haven't made a bad choice. You're just trying to make a change. So, since fear has made itself known, discernment still matters. What if you haven't seen it, go back to my last video. I did walk through some steps to do, but just a quick reminder here that when fear shows up, discern whether that fear is actually yours or whether it's a programmed fear from perhaps your parents or your grandparents or your community or even your culture. And if you figure out that that fear is actually yours, the next question to ask is, what is true about that fear? What is true about that particular situation? When I recently I had to go to the U.S. consulate in Marseille for to get a U.S. notary on a document that I had to sign. When you are abroad and you need your signature notarized, your nearest consulate or embassy is the only place that you can do that. So I had to go to Marseille, my nearest consulate, and I made an appointment. And in the back of my mind, like I could feel the fear about going to Marseille come up. There's lots of statistics. It's the #1 city for crime in France. I have a friend who had her car stolen there, so I could make something up about that. It's a big city in France. I've driven in Bordeaux, but maybe Marseille's like crazier to drive in. I had all of these stories coming up about this fear and like, what could I do? And maybe like, would Paris be better? And it was just like this running tape. And I had to sit down with myself. I could easily figure out that this fear didn't belong to anybody else. It was mine. And I knew where part of the story was coming from was from news reports that I had read about crime and that kind of thing. But I also could admit that I had read plenty of stories, watched plenty of YouTube videos where people have gone to Marseille and said, this is a beautiful city. I feel fine here. I feel safe here. And so I had to get real that there were two sides to this coin. And, when I was looking at what were the facts of it, like I know for myself that I'm protected, and I knew that to be true. I knew I could find a parking facility close to the consulate that was secured. That I knew I could do that. So I just started to set out those steps. Truth be known, I laughed at myself as I'm driving into Marseille, and it's the easiest drive I think I've ever taken into a French city. So simple to get to where I needed to go. The parking garage looked like any parking garage that I've ever parked in France. It was just like I was laughing at my own like fearful making story as I'm going through this. The only kind of pause I had of the day was when I was actually approaching the consulate, and of course the guards are all armed and everything out front, and I'm like, ooh, that's scary. But it all went fine, got my signature notarized, got to my car, and as I'm driving out of the city, noticing how lovely it is, I'm like, I'm coming back down here for a day trip. There's things I want to see here. So don't let your fear stop you. So when fear shows up, because if you're making any kind of meaningful change in your life, it will. I want you to take a pause I want you to take a big, deep breath and feel that breath go all the way down to your diaphragm. And then as you exhale that breath, exhale it very slowly, because I want you to feel in your body. I'm trying to remove you from here, from in your head, and get you really resident in your body. And then I want you to ask those questions. Is this fear really mine? And once you figure out if it is, because it absolutely can be, what do you know to be true about it? Because the third step in this little process, pause, get curious, and go anyway. But you want to go if you're aligned to it. If you feel a total alignment, like, okay, I know enough from the curiosity questions. I know enough to take that next meaningful step. I knew enough to make a plan to drive to Marseille, to get secure parking. I knew enough to do those things. I still had no idea if I would feel safe and comfortable as I walked out of the parking garage. I had a pretty good idea as I was driving in, because like everything looked fine. But like, until I actually went there, because I had never been to Nice before that, until I'd been there, I didn't know. And now I just laugh at it. So get curious, take a pause, get in your body, get curious, scrape through those layers of the fears and what that little ego person in you is trying to tell you and warn you about. Figure out what's true of that and decide what's the next meaningful step that you can take anyway. Because the more of those steps you take, the easier this becomes and the fear goes away. My fear started to abate the minute I was driving into Marseille going, oh, well, this doesn't look terrifying. This doesn't look scary at all. This actually looks pretty cool. Like a place I want to come back and visit. Like, by the time I got to the parking garage, the fear was basically gone. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. It really was. Okay, let's close this out. Just one thing I want to leave you with. There is not a big decision or big change that I have ever made in my life where fear wasn't present. Any of the meaningful changes that I've made, I always did them despite the fear. Fear doesn't necessarily mean that you're on the wrong path. Sometimes it simply means that you're standing on the precipice of the next big expansion in your life. So try to begin to look at fear as a signal that growth is about to happen. Big things are about to happen. You are about to happen. How good is that? I will leave it there. I wish you a very pleasant day, and I will see you in the next one. A bientôt.